Hey folks, it's Rob from Robert Russell Designs. We've got this nice, beautiful, round, solid walnut table with a bridle base. And we start by ripping down the wood, of course, on the saw stop table saw. This usually takes a couple of hours. Before I get to this point though, I do measure the width in relationship to the size that I need for the table that I am about to build. We go ripping it down. After that, we take it on the jet planer. It's a 15-inch straight blade planer. Really does the trick. This thing is an absolute workhorse, and those blades are super strong. Crank down the thickness for a bit. A lot of walking back and forth in the workshop for me. After we do that, I cut it down on the miter saw to the approximate length that I need, and I start measuring it for the round. Not just did I measure it for the round, but I'm also marking for the loose domino tenons that I'm going to put into the piece. Now cutting those loose domino tenons with the Domino 700 XL. Again, yet another workhorse to get the job done. I also have the smaller Domino 500, but this one's more comfortable to my hands. Spreading the glue, I usually just spread the glue on one side because, well, I use a lot of it. I know I get some squeeze out, but I do come through with the Rotex for that, and it just kind of rips through it really fast. I always use a whole bunch of clamps. Not sure how many clamps I should use for each table, but dang, I usually crank through it. Now here's my homemade router compass. Really, it's just a piece of ash with some holes in it to mount the Festool 220 OF2. And then I screw it into the center of the table, but on the bottom of the side of the table because, well, there's going to be a hole. And then this takes about 8 passes. Not 8, maybe 6. Because I go about 1/8 of an inch deep each time. This particular one was just bigger than my work table here that is on casters, so I ended up just simply spinning the work table and staying still and holding the router. Now I get to work on the bridle base. These angles were a little bit complicated at first, but we were able to crank through it. Now if you notice, I use those clamping culls on it to hold it down as I clamp these together. That was absolutely essential to get that joint nice and tight and snug. Get more domino action, more calls. So those triangular ones were needed because the first time I tried to clamp this together, it actually started to separate and spread, and I didn't want that to continue. But we clamped it again, and we're getting more dominoes here to get these other pieces together, more of those triangular ones as well. Now clamping for that took about 30 minutes, which was such a pain because it was just difficult to get situated. Here we are with the sanders. Use the linear sander first. Now for the RO 150. You'll notice there's a little blotch on the table. That was me filling some knots with some epoxy. And sander, I danced through 1, 2, 5 sanders for this particular piece. The reason is because we start with some really detail-oriented stuff on the face, but then on the top we start with the RO to get the glue off in geared mode, and then we go to the 5 millimeter radius sander, and then the 3 millimeter radius sander at the 120 grit before we end up doing the Rubio monocoat. Here also, I decided to make the table levelers invisible on this table. Why? Because the height was perfect without table legs. It just makes this really clean, sleek table have a nice, clean, sleek look at the floor level. Screw those in, sink them. And every single table I do, I water pop with mineral spirits. Now, after I wet it down with this to get all the dust off of all the sides, not just the sides, but also the base, it takes about an hour, hour and a half for it to dry, just to air dry. And then I can come back with the Rubio monocoat. It's a 2-part solution. You put it together, you mix it. I use a rubber scraper to spread it. And then I'm going to wipe it off with some dry towels. On the edges, definitely use a towel. to get those edges at that edge grain really working in, really working into the base as well. Now here's the final product, and I don't think there's much better than solid walnut on the table, to be quite honest. And friends, come back to the channel again, subscribe, and we will see you on the next build.